I never thought I would set foot in a dance studio at my age. 68, with joints that sometimes creaked when I climbed the stairs, with a body that reminded me daily. That time was no longer on my side. Dancing, that was for the young, the flexible, the romantic. Not for me. But Ishida, my old friend, wouldn't stop pestering me. He said it was good for the body, that it kept the mind sharp. He laughed when I shook my head, and with a sly grin, he whispered the bait that finally hooked me. There are women there. Beautiful women. You'll get to hold them close. And so, half reluctant, half curious, I let him drag me along. The moment I stepped inside, the air shifted. The polished wooden floor shone under soft lights, and the mirrored wall reflected the swaying figures of couples entwined in rhythm. Music poured from hidden speakers, a deep, pulsing beat that filled the room with something I could only describe as anticipation. Then I saw her. In an instant, all of Ishida's words became irrelevant, because what I saw silenced every protest I had. She stood on the floor like a vision, wrapped in a dress that shimmered as she moved, hugging her curves, splitting high along one thigh. Each step she took was deliberate, smooth, hypnotic. Her hips rolled with such liquid grace that it didn't look like dancing, it looked like seduction. Every sway seemed to invite the eye. Every flash of pale thigh through the slit of her skirt struck me like a spark. A rush of heat spread through my chest, and I realized my mouth had moved without my permission. I whispered to myself, that waist, I've never seen anything like it. Riyoko Hashimoto. That was her name, Ishida told me. But his voice was distant. I barely heard him. My entire focus was locked on the way. Her body spoke, wordless and yet overwhelming. She was dancing, yes, but it was more than that. She was breathing sensuality into the air, and I was inhaling it with every breath. I must have looked ridiculous, staring like a teenager who had stumbled upon his first glimpse of a woman. My heart was pounding with the kind of nervous excitement I hadn't felt in decades. First time here? A man's voice snapped me back to myself. The studio manager stood in front of me, smiling politely. I muttered something about just watching. My instinct was to retreat, to escape before I embarrassed myself further. But then came the words that changed everything. Why don't you try a simple step, just once? I wanted to refuse. My lips were forming the words, when Ishida clapped me on the shoulder and grinned. Go on, give it a try. And then, before I could take another breath, I heard her voice. Shall we? I turned, and she was there. Riyoko. The woman I had been staring at only moments ago now stood close enough that I could see the fine sheen of her skin, smell the faint sweetness of her perfume. My pulse jumped wildly. Me? I've never danced in my life, I stammered. Her smile was calm, assured, devastating. Don't worry. I'll lead. And then her hand slipped into mine. Warm. Soft. It was such a simple touch, yet the effect was explosive. A surge of heat shot through my body, settling low in my stomach, making me feel both alive and unsteady. She guided me gently onto the polished floor. I could hardly focus on where to place my feet. All I could think about was her hand, her closeness, the subtle pressure of her body against mine. Relax, she whispered, close enough that her breath stirred the hair at my ear. Just follow me. My hand rested awkwardly against the small of her back, and I felt the firm yet supple line of her body beneath the fabric of her dress. Her perfume curled around me, intoxicating, pulling me deeper. I swallowed hard, trying to calm myself, but it was impossible. Every time her hip brushed mine, every time her chest came near, I felt my body betraying me, reacting like a man decades younger. I had come here certain that dance was nothing but elegant, postures and meaningless steps. But in her arms, with her guiding me, I realized it was something far more dangerous. This was closeness, heat, temptation, every movement. A kind of embrace, every step a provocation. And for the first time in years, I didn't want to resist. Her hand remained in mine as she pulled me into the center of the floor. The music swelled around us, a slow, sultry rhythm, the kind of tune that seemed made for intimacy. My heart hammered against my ribs, each beat echoing louder than the drums from the speakers. Just look at me, she whispered, her eyes steady, her lips curved in that teasing, confident smile. And breathe. I tried to obey, but it was impossible not to notice the rise and fall of her chest so close to mine, the faint sheen of her skin beneath the soft lights, the perfume that seemed to weave into my very blood. My hand pressed lightly against her back, and even through the fabric, I could feel the heat of her body. Her hips began to move first, slow, deliberate, coaxing me to follow. I stumbled, awkward at first, but she tightened her hold on my hand, grounding me. Don't fight it, she murmured. Just feel me. Feel her. God, how could I not? The sway of her hips brushed against me with every step, smooth, hypnotic. The slit of her dress revealed the length of her thigh, pale and firm, disappearing again, only to flash once more. My throat tightened, and I swallowed hard. I thought dancing would be distant, elegant, a kind of performance. But this was something else entirely. She was pressed against me, her body aligning with mine so closely, I could feel the rhythm of her breath, the steady thrum of her pulse. It was less like dancing and more like a slow seduction, one step at a time. Better, she said softly, her lips near my ear. The warmth of her breath sent shivers down my neck. You're moving with me now. I forced myself to concentrate on her eyes, but that only made it worse. They were dark, glistening, full of something I couldn't name. Invitation, perhaps, or challenge. Each time I tried to steady myself, she drew me closer, her body brushing mine, her movements so fluid I felt I was being carried along by a tide. Loosen your shoulders, she whispered again, pressing a hand against my chest just lightly enough to make my breath catch. Let me in. The touch was fleeting, but it left a scorch across my skin, as if her palm had branded me. My body obeyed before my mind did, relaxing, swaying, moving in time with hers. For the first time, I felt a rhythm that wasn't just music, it was her. Her hips rolled against mine in a way that made me forget we were surrounded by other dancers. To me, there was no one else in that room. Just her body, her perfume, her heat pressing into me, her voice wrapping around my ear like silk. She smiled again, tilting her head so close her hair brushed my cheek. See, you can do it. I wanted to laugh, to tell her she was wrong, that I was clumsy and lost. But the truth was, she was right. My body was following hers step by step, as if she were guiding me into a private rhythm no one else could hear. And yet, beneath the surface of every step, every brush of thigh against thigh, every subtle press of her chest against me, I felt something more dangerous. Desire. It built slowly, creeping from my stomach to my throat, until I was almost choking on it. Ishida's words echoed in my mind. You'll get to hold a woman close. He hadn't exaggerated, but even he couldn't have imagined this. This wasn't just close. This was intoxicating. The music shifted, deepened, and she drew me tighter into her. My hands slid against the curve of her back, and I felt the firmness of muscle beneath the softness of her skin. She smelled faintly of jasmine, and every breath I took seemed laced with her essence. Her eyes caught mine again, and for a moment it felt like the world dropped away. The room, the music, even Ishida, all of it disappeared. There was only her gaze, her warmth, the hypnotic motion of her hips as they pressed, circled, lingered against mine. Perfect, she whispered, though I knew my steps were anything but. She said it not to correct me, but to coax me, deeper to keep me here, bound to her rhythm. By the time the song ended, my body was slick with sweat, my heart thundering in my chest as though I'd run a mile. But it wasn't exhaustion that left me trembling, it was her. Her body still lingered against mine, her hand still curled lightly in my palm. She pulled back only slightly, just enough to meet my eyes again. The faintest smile played at her lips. You see, that wasn't so bad. Not so bad. If only she knew how my body had betrayed me, how every nerve had been on fire since she first touched me. I wanted to tell her that it wasn't dancing I had felt. It was her. The heat of her waist, the scent of her skin, the dangerous intimacy of her nearness. I could barely breathe, but I managed to nod. You make it easy. Her laughter was soft, low, almost sultry. I make it natural. And God help me, she was right. The bar had been dim, the music soft, her laughter smooth as wine. But when she leaned close, her hand brushing my arm with deliberate ease, I already knew where the night was leading. I didn't resist. I couldn't. We stepped into the cool night, her perfume still clinging to my shirt, and walked the short distance to her apartment. Each step was a pulse, every second heavy with anticipation. I followed her without question, as if she had already claimed me, with the rhythm of her hips on the dance floor. Her building was quiet, the hallway still. She unlocked the door with practiced ease and looked back at me over her shoulder. That glance, half daring, half promise, was enough to ignite me all over again. Inside, her apartment was warm, lit softly by a single lamp. The faint scent of her perfume floated through the air, mingled with something sweeter, like vanilla. She closed the